Welcome everyone to the Mastermind Book Club here tonight going over Principles, Life and Work by Ray Dalio. What's the importance of this book? Well, Ray Dalio was asked once by Tony Robbins, if you had a chance to only leave a set of principles in your life, and if they were financial principles, what would they be? Well, Ray Dalio went ahead and created the book Principles, Life and Work. And I believe, what is a better way to leave a legacy if you couldn't leave money to anyone, but a map of how he got to where he became successful, and he created a company called Bridgewater and has made immense returns for people, and how he applied this to his work as well as his life. So here we are going over part three of this book, because it's a long book. It's about 14 hours and change, if I'm not wrong. And this book, it took us 3 weeks to get through. I don't know if you got able to listen to it as much as we did, but I'd say it's a very important book, especially if you're looking out to set a business, if you're going into investing in the stock market or crypto. Very important. But not only that, you can apply it to anything in life. You can manage your life. You can create a better system. I mean, if you have a vision, which we spoke about last week a little bit, and everyone has a different view on what a vision is, but Ray Dalio brings a little bit more clarity into how to bring that vision into fruition, how to create some rules, how to create some principles in order to get that vision realized. Well, just take, for example, if you're looking to become a musician and you're looking to sing, I mean, is the vision enough to create a song? It could be, but in the end, if you're looking to create hundreds of songs, I don't think a vision is enough for you to remember these songs. You'd have to write them down. I mean, that's the minimum part. If you're looking to create a business, you're going to have to create some rules. You're going to have to create a system. That's the key word, a system. If you create the system, then someone will understand what you're looking to do with your business and how to make it grow. So tonight, let's go over part three. And I'd like to ask some of the members that are listening here very important questions, very simple and very important. Number one, what is the one thing that you learned from this book? Gentlemen, ladies, what is the one thing that you learned from the third part of this book, or overall the whole book? Or are you confused just as much as I am? Because this third part of this book is a little bit confusing. Why? Because it's a robotic audio and it could get you lost. It got me a little bit lost, but I'd say I got a thing or two out of this book that's very important. Does anyone know one thing that they learned from this book?
Well, I guess I can kick it off.
Charles, go ahead. It's all
one,
yours.
one thing that I learned
I'm going to mute myself.
Is that you have to be able to look at the organization as well as look at your life and see what problems or difficulties you have. And don't look at them as problems or difficulties, but look at them as experiences to learn from. Uh, one thing that I got was organizations are reverse pyramids. So Ray Dalio, he started at the very top. He was the first person, and he went from there, adding on people to form, Bridgewater. So he started at the top. He picked out his managers, he picked out his directors, and it turned into a 40-year success. Uh, he often qualifies the Bridgewater as terrible and terrific at the same time, with all the different, I guess, diversities and difficulties that they go through. However, they have certain ways of diagnosing, certain ways of looking to get to the root cause of what the problems are, and sometimes it could be the right people in the wrong space, and that's where, I guess, going from the top down, you can do what they call a drill down towards the end, where they said that you you identify the problem by being very specific. You look at certain areas that might be the cause of the problem. You don't really focus on the rare events that always happen. You keep asking the question, what, and then you create once you get to the root cause that you ID, what's actually going on. This drill down process, will find 80% of, what actually happens. Is a 4-hour process where you get everyone involved. You check out, you do the diagnosis to see what's actually going on, so you can create a plan, see if anyone who's, I guess, ego is in the way. So these are some of the things that I got out that I will apply to my life, as far as just looking towards the key things. And then, of course, he came to some simple conclusions where, ego is edging God out, doing the same thing with the same people over and over again, expecting different results is insanity. These are things that we're well aware of. See if there's any other good points. I have a lot of good points, but these were just some of them that I took right off the bat. Making sure that your managers are on task with their goals, and that everyone is on the same page. Once again, building that culture, and that having great people. And when people don't fit the scheme, you can't hesitate in getting rid of them. So one thing they need is imagination. With tough love, I noticed that there's been a lot of complaints against this organization for, I guess, diversity, being hard in some areas is one of their main problems. But they have a family type atmosphere where, next man up. Integrity, transparency is some of the things they focus on. Remove the ones that don't fit, and make sure everyone is participating and going in the same direction. These are some of the things that I picked up. Culture is okay to make mistakes if you recognize them. They are natural occurrences. Mistakes are made to learn from, and they're to better your situation and your goals. So that's even true in your life. You're going to make mistakes naturally, but this book pretty much focused on having a set of principles, having a sense of reality, knowing where you're going. So even if you trip and fall, you can get right back up. If you trip and fall again, you get back up and you focus on what you need to focus on. Go where you need to go. The book was a pretty good book. A little robotic, as someone mentioned earlier, but all in all, it was a lot that you can apply to a corporation, or starting your business, or just apply it to your life in general. Next man up.
Wow, that's very good, Charles. Very good. Really appreciate that review. That's really good. Thank you, Charles, for sharing that. And in what you said there, I mean, yeah, that pretty much sums it up. If you had to sum up that whole thing in 2 or 3 words, what would you say?
I like the people and culture, because if you could have the right people in your life and have a specific culture that you look to be in, like I'm not a drinker or a smoker, nor do I tend to gravitate or be around those type of people.
What happened? He coming here?
Whoops, hold
Hello?
on a second.
Okay.
Hold on, let me just mute.
Take you a
Somebody's on a conversation. Hold on.
Oh, wait, they can hear me.
There we go. Okay. There we go. Good. All right, Charles. Sorry about that.
To sum it up is like in life, you need to really focus on your goals. Is probably how I would sum it up, and make sure that you have principles and people around you that will help you go towards where you need to go to. And don't be scared to remove people in your life who are not really going in the same direction.
And I'm going to add one more thing, if that's okay. Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
Although I'm not adding because you said at the beginning, a business is like a reverse pyramid. Even a relationship is, even marriage. Okay. Meaning you start out and you're alone,
I like
right?
that.
And when you're alone, you have to make decisions. Who do you marry? Who do you hire? Who do you bring in? And those decisions are not the easiest decisions to make. You're going to make errors. You're going to be wrong sometimes, or you're going to have to bite your tongue and hold that pressure in, or find a different way to release it until you understand what's going on. Why? Because no two people think alike. No two people will always be in agreement. As a matter of fact, there are going to be times when you're going to say one thing and the other person is going to say the opposite. One of you has to give and the other one has to take. All right. I've given, I've taken, and I know it's not easy, no matter what, no matter what. And I'm certain that most of you know the same reality is that when you give and take, one has to bite their tongue while the other one takes all the merits. So on a top-down pyramid, a reverse pyramid, for in reference to a business, as Ray Dalio was referring to, and Charles summarizing it, you're going to start on your own. When are you going to make the choice to hire someone? And we've gone over this in the last several weeks, that when you want to be realistic about your business, you're going to have to start hiring people. And you're going to have to start hiring even for doing, let's say, laundry or cleaning at the beginning, or even bookkeeping once in a while, and then work your way up. So you're not always going to have the right people. I've had to fire people, and luckily they fired themselves for me. So, and then they come back and they say, hey, so you're still looking for somebody? I'm like, well, not anymore. Sometimes people make decisions and they don't know that they've made the decision that they really wanted to make. That's going to happen to all of us.
Just right
And
quick,
when,
this is something that apply right to where you are. It says most people will pretend to operate in your interests, but are really operating in
yes,
theirs,
correct,
their own.
correct. That's right. That's right. So let's leave it there. Can you say that once more, Charles?
Most people will pretend to operate in your interests, but are really operating in their own.
Correct. Always thinking about number one, and that is me. Thank you, Charles. That's very important. Thank you for ending it like that. Anyone else want to say what's the one thing that they learned from this book?
I'll go next.
Yes, Gina, enlighten us.
I like how you say that.
And
It's
you're gonna confirm it.
what I get it from it is, if you're willing to pay attention, okay, there are certain patterns that have been established over the years, the decades, the millennia, and they point to certain things that happen once certain things happen, something to that effect. Okay, so there's a pattern pretty much to nature, to just about any and everything, if we're willing to pay attention. Better yet, if we learn to apply it to our daily lives, and personal lives, and to our businesses, then we can actually be able to profit from that, and exponentially profit from that. So that's one of the takes that I've gotten from there. The other one is to know thyself. And it goes back to, some of those psychological tests that, the author suggested or that he has taken, and he has had different people in his organization take. So to see where people's strengths and weaknesses lie. And, you know, we all have those. And so what better than to be placed in an area that is most suitable for our skills, our strengths, you know, things that make us come alive. So those, I mean, I got a lot of other takeaways from, you know, from the book, but those are the two that stick out in my mind right now that I would like to share. Dave, you're muted.
Well, Gina, if you want to summarize that in 2 or 3 words, how would you summarize that?
Look out for patterns and work with your strengths.
Can I add something to what you said, because it's very important? One word.
Certainly.
Systems.
Yes.
What is the
There you go.
system you're going to use to have recurring income, to make it easier for you, to make it easier for everyone that you will hire?
Mhm. Yes, I like that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Right. Reg or anyone else? I think Ty is on the line. I don't know if she wants to comment anyway. You're muted, Ty. You can. Oh, yes. Okay. Reg?
Hi,
sir.
hi everyone. Everyone's
Hey,
well.
Ty. Can we have Ty go
Okay.
first, Reg? Is that okay?
Sure.
All right.
If
Ty.
Reg wants to go, I could.
Okay. Well, then.
Actually, what I got from the book was to make sure that you let people know what you want in the beginning. You know, let everybody know at the front door, this is how it, you know, this is my vision, this is how I see things. And if we're going to work together and we can use each other's services or whatever, you know, that's basically what I got. He said, let them know what you want in the beginning. So I'm thinking like I hear that, because I know I missed a couple of trainings and classes, but I know that from the book, and I heard you say something, David, about businesses. So if I was to pertain as a business, I would just make sure that, you know, that the policies that we have set is followed, and that, you know, that the best candidate, because he was also saying how he didn't hire people for the experience. He hired them because of, like, I guess, like the spirit, and like the spirit of wanting to, you know, do something and achieve. So I'm not sure if he said like later down the line that he don't know if he would have did it that way like now, but you know, it did help him still, because then it, you know, for his situation, it helped him. So in my situation, I would be like the same, in a sense of just make sure that everybody knows what the policies are and what, you know, what the goal is, the common goal, and make sure that everyone is working towards that common goal. That's what I got. Thank you.
Ty, thank you. Thank you. And that also points out to systems as well. What is the system you're going to utilize? And there's you need to be clear and let people know what you want, but you also have to lay out a system that they should follow in place because of what it is that you want. Thank you, Ty. Appreciate that. And Ty, is there any 2 or 3 lines that you want to summarize that in 2 or 3 words? Sorry, 2 or 3 words. Or did I jump the
Sure.
gun and say it?
No, no, you're great. I'm saying, you know, I'm, like I said, even though I may not have come to a lot of the classes, I still try to read the books to keep up.
Very
So
good. Very
if
good.
to summarize, I would say that I would just learn from, you know, my peers and the people that I'm working with, and we all just learn from each other. You know, no one knows, you know, some people might know a little more and a little less, but I think it's still better when everyone is working together towards a common goal.
Got
in
it. Got
spite
it.
of their differences.
All right. All right. Good. Ty, don't leave because we got something to say after this recording. Very important for you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Hold on. Reg, you are up, Reg.
I'm here in the flesh.
Yes. Go ahead. Enlighten us.
Enlighten us, oh wise one, you. Mr. Dalio, principles, systems, practicum for life. And you mentioned how it could be used not in just in business, but also in life. And this is what I was mentioning to Charles a little while back earlier before the conversation, because he was saying something around this was like a business kind of guide, but I was saying it's actually something you can produce or use in your life in all aspects, especially as relates to the people you keep around and what level of access they have to you or what kind of conversations you're going to have with them and this sort of thing that could help build your life. And this thing that I will hone in on in this book, especially this latter part, it wasn't all that, but a big focus, and also throughout the book, but a big focus was like people, right? So people are very integral in in your life in all facets and growing a business. But at the same time, even before the people, I mean, like he said in this book, he talked about people being important, but even before the people, you actually would build the organization, right? So the organization, in the case of the business, the organization is built from the top down, right? So you would first you would put together the organization with people and a certain type of people, the CEOs, whatever, in this case, multiple CEOs, if they have multiple CEOs to do the job. And then you find people to fill the role. So you don't start with finding the people first and then build the organization. You put together the structure, the principles, the guidelines, the dictates, and these types of things. And then you say, all right, who would be best to put in certain places that are going to best be suitable to make this thing go. So that's a very important thing. And so when you're setting setting up your life as well, or when you're going through life, the people that are in your life matter too, because you want to make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who are going to be additive, people who you can relate to, people who are vibrating on a certain frequency, the same frequency as you, as even Charles talked about, and being around certain people that maybe didn't smoke and drink and different things like that, because that could be they could be very much foundational in terms of being sort of adding or subtracting from your life. And as they say, you become the average of the people you're around most, especially the 5 people you're around most, and that's in every aspect, right? So you really want to be mindful of that. But the Bridgeport, the Bridgewater way is really about having the right people in the right places. I kind of think about the book that we had read previously, where it talked about putting people in the right seats on the bus. I forget which book it was, and I thought about that in the context of this organization, because there was a mention where it said you'd be better off not keeping a person in the wrong role and then getting rid of them later, because ultimately that could lead to them having a false sense of how good they were, right, is one. And then at the same time, if you're in the wrong position so long, and then you're doing all these wrong things for so long, there's potential for that to then bleed into other areas of the company and other people. And the negative effect of that could be way worse than if you actually took somebody out, fired them, or moved them out of that role a lot sooner, because then you didn't allow that almost like, let's say if it was a sort of cancerous situation or a negative situation to grow, because you would have stemmed it or stymied it right out the gate or earlier on, and then then managed it and made sure you addressed it. So that was a big mention in the book, and that's something to really be sort of on top of. And then it talked about I forget in what context, again, with people, I forget the exact scenario, but it was talking about when you basically do things for people, if you just chose to sort of like give a certain group of people some type of gift or some type of a certain type of treatment, right? And you can decide what it is that you want to give to someone, and it doesn't matter that someone else says, well, you didn't do XYZ for us, because it's really on you to make that determination. And you know, that could be a level of a generosity thing, whereas you decide you want to do something for someone in the context of us, you know, just being, it being a charitable or a nice thing to do. And then the other persons that may, you know, feel a certain sort of way about it, that's on them. But, you know, maybe in their case, there may be a certain level of entitlement that they might feel. So, you know, there was a mention between knowing what the, you know, generosity was versus like entitlement, you know, so that's something to be aware of too, right? Just in the context of that particular situation, you know, it talked about, like, I think it was like they decided to give bus transportation to the New York people that lived in New York out to Connecticut office, and there were some people that were griping about that. But that was something, for whatever reason, they had decided to do, and they can do that out of generosity's sake, and there's no one can really critique that or be, you know, negative towards it, because hey, we don't have to do anything, and you know, in some other way, you I'm sure those other persons were benefiting. But then there was a mention about in terms of the organization and how you manage the organization and paying people. And the idea was that you will pay people enough to be financially like not to struggle financially, but not to give them so much that they get fat and lazy. So you want to build that incentive to where people are working towards a common good, a common goal. If we're working towards a common good and common goal and building and growing, we're going to automatically benefit from that, and that's going to translate to money and everything else. You don't want to do a thing where you give people so much that they just become complacent, and then ultimately it's like, wow, what good are
Fred,
we,
speak up a
you know,
little
It's
bit.
a
There's
lot
some
of
background
background
more and
noise.
noise.
more because
Yeah.
there's not so much more to benefit from. So who cares? That's one thing, right? Yeah, and as well, what else was there? Talked about, you also want people that are around you that are more concerned with building a bigger pie or creating a bigger pie, as opposed to worrying about how big a slice of the pie they were going to get. So if we're working towards this greater something, we're just going to end up growing that thing, this organization, this mission, this thing that we're working on. And so you don't really need to be concerned about how big a piece you're going to get, because the pie is going to keep growing anyway, and you're going to get more than your fair share, right? So just do what you have to do, what you came here to do, and that's going to make it such that when it's all said and done, we're all going to come away winners, and we're all going to come away happy, successful, and all that sort of thing, right? So I like some of those principles, if you will, that he put in play, just because you know, we're talking about having the right people, we're talking about putting people in the right seats, on the right places, we're talking about not keeping people, if they are in the wrong places, to keep them in those places so long to where it becomes a detriment to them, to the individual, and also to the company. We're talking about people working towards a greater mission and the goal, which is aligned with the building of the company and following these certain principles, which ultimately, if we're doing that, ultimately it leads to a greater good for all, and we're all going to benefit, right? So those are some very good things if you think about, and then we can you know, really take to heart. And what else was there? There was some other things that I was thinking of off the top. That were very good in this thing. Oh, like this thing of, like, in terms of the guidance or the guidelines that were put in place, or, you know, for the organization. There's a thing where it's about, let's just work towards being right as much as we're going to work towards being right. And he often talked about triangularization, which is basically, I have a thought, you have a thought, we have a thought, let's work together, figure out what's the best, you know, in terms of us bringing, you know, understanding and saying, like, oh, you decided this, or you think this, I think that. But why do you think that? Why do you decide this? Whatever. And ultimately, if we work together and we can, like, you know, dispute in a very healthy manner, we can get to a better, greater place of understanding and greater good, and a greater level of maybe right. So, but at the same time, if it's about you just wanting to be right, and that goes, and maybe you are right, or rather, and that goes against the principles, that's a problem. So we it's not just like, so what, you're right. Sometimes being right could be detrimental, could be a negative. So you got to be careful with that, right? So there's a way to go about it, whereas let's follow the principles as best we can, but then sometimes the principles can be put aside, especially if you have an argument against it. And maybe in that context, or maybe that situation, it may be fine that, your argument, your opinion wins out, but maybe in another situation, you being right may not be the best thing. So it's not always about that. And that may be in conflict with the whole organization. So we have to be very careful of that, just so we're not, making it bad for everyone else in terms of just leaving a bad stink because you just decided that you needed to be right. And so, and even all that it talks about in relation to the people is making sure, even as you bring people into the mix and everyone's doing what they do in their roles respectively, you want to make sure that you pick good people and you pick people with certain skills, which is very important, but character and value, or character and work and value are more even higher on a totem pole than skills. So that's critical, because the people who, if they don't have the right values and the right character, they're not going to add to the culture, right? So you want to be very mindful of that. And they made mistakes, as he talked about. We made mistakes in picking certain people over the course of time, but you learn from that, and there's so much examination they do with the baseball cards, with the assessments and all, and so on and so forth. So you're pretty much like an open book, I guess, if it's all done in a truthful way. And so it gives them a better way to be able to assess people as a whole. And as Ray Dalio talked about, people, you want to be around people that you're going to be okay with spending a long time with, maybe even a lifetime, right? So that's where the whole people concept is very critical in terms of who you pick, right? He's very big on that. He said he wouldn't trade any amount of money for the right relationships, right? So those, again, back to people. So the one glaring thing, or glaring thing that stands out to me is people. Right. It's all about people who you choose to be around, the people you put in positions, the people who are leading the company, the people who have an understanding of open-mindedness and understanding as leaders in the company, especially as the top leaders, and that you want to be able to pick your successor so that your successor is better than you. So you have to be willing to let ego go and all those things, so that you're realizing that there's a succession plan in place, and if I would happen to leave now, that the company will be better off because I put somebody in place that does the job even better than me. And then at the same time, it's not about that person, as well as having a level of governance in place, so that basically everyone's kept in check, and one person is bigger than the next person. And that's another thing, because there wasn't as much governance along the way, and that's where I think there was a struggle when Ray was ready to move on, even though he had thought about it and then he put it in play around his maybe 60s, but it was a bit of a struggle because I think he had done so much, and that's where you don't want to be, in that place where you become so big and so important in a company that it's hard for you to let go. It's hard for them to let you go. So these are very important things, and understanding that, and even in putting in your own life a certain level of succession plan, so that, like, if you leave the equation, that ultimately things can continue on with the family and everything else. So again, how you can apply this stuff back to your own life. So that's very critical. But again, the main thing that stands out is people, who's in your life, what purpose they serve in your life, what positions they serve in your life or in the organization, whatever. How good a job they do managing their weaknesses versus their strengths, and catering to their strengths and allowing other people to fill in where they're weak, as well as in your own life where you might be weak, you can allow other people to help you in those areas, and where you're strong, you can definitely focus on that. Very important things. Being open-minded, so that you are willing to learn and grow, and not allow your own interest to get in the way, because that's a problem if you're just about you. And it was a mention that if people had an option between helping you and getting something out of life for themselves, they were more likely to be in a position or set themselves up to just always kind of fill themselves. So you understand we all are creatures of needs and wants and desires, but you just making sure that at the same time you have people that are very selfless and and giving, and not just looking out for their own self-interest. So that's critical. But those are some of the shares. I mean, I guess I could definitely kind of, as I keep talking, I'll probably think of some more stuff, but I'll just stay with that for now, you know, just so I'm not talking indefinitely about the book. But it's a big book, a good book. You know, it was a very powerful thing for him to do, a mighty thing for him to do in terms of leaving behind this document, this book that talks about how, you know, you can implement, you know, basically that gives these principles that, you know, shows like how he led his company up to this point. And, you know, he said, you know, if this is the last thing I will leave behind, and basically after this, I'm done, was sort of like the statement he said, almost as if like, I've done everything I needed to do, and it's all in this book. And you take this book and hopefully, you know, you'll get something from it, which I believe a lot of people will, if they actually like kind of take it in and really like listen and dissect it and ingest it. But you know, no one really has to do this, but I think it was a good thing that he did, because it's pretty powerful.
Thank you, Reg. Reg, I appreciate that. Very good summary. And the only thing I'd like to say is that, did you know that on average, you're not going to find a person that's 100% as competitive you, but if you find anyone between 60 and 80%, I'd say you got to give them a try. 60 to 80% of the work that you do. He tried someone, I remember in the last part 2, that he hired to do 2 jobs, and the guy was successful in one but not in the other.
Yeah, that
So
was Greg,
it's
the guy, Greg.
that's right.
He
Okay,
had
Greg.
to step in and replace him because, you know,
He
the
couldn't
company
handle
was
both
failing.
jobs. Yep,
Yeah, the
he couldn't
company
handle.
was failing. He had to put him in the job that he was good for.
And
But
Bridgewater's not exactly the same as it used to be when Ray Dalio was there, but he cannot be everywhere. And you know, the reality is he's passing the baton, and he's not going to be able to have that baton in his hand forever, but he can consult and provide guidance, because he needs to move. He needed to move on to do some of the things he wants to do, because time is ticking. He's in his 70s now. He's in his 70s, because this book
72.
was 72. This book was written 12 years ago, right? Something like that. But again, everyone here said something very important. I don't know if Ty wanted to say anything else, but everyone said something very important. I'm not going to say much. All I'm going to
Can I
say,
interject this real quick? Since you
go
put the
ahead.
moon up, you
Yep,
put
go
your
ahead.
background of the moon. I really like that. It was like it says
The
systems.
Earth. That's the Earth.
Oh, that's the Earth. Oh, I thought it was the
Yes.
moon. My fault.
You
It says
check and make sure I'm aware of what I'm doing.
okay. It says systems get you what you want and help you accomplish your goals. Looking through the eyes of others, you often learn from their mistakes. Improve, strive, and shoot for the moon and fail well, but never let yourself get knocked out of the game.
Correct. And with that, I want to ask one question. Does anyone have any idea how much Ray Dalio has lost in investing? He said it in the book. Take a guess.
They went down, I'm gonna say $49 billion because,
1 billion. 1
okay.
billion, not
I was
49.
gonna say 1 billion, not
1
40.
billion. 1 billion.
Well, that's what the assets went down.
How much is he worth?
I had 150 billion.
16.
Okay.
15 to
Oh,
20.
no, that's the company. I'm sorry. Yeah, they have him 14 to 20 billion.
Yeah, well, I'm saying 16, but anywhere between 14 and 20. But do you understand, right? In order to make returns, you will lose at one point or another. I run into people all the time who say they've never lost money. They've never lost money. Then you haven't made money. I've lost money, but I've made it. And then we had this conversation last week, Tuesday, right? I mean, crypto's down, stocks are down right now. I have some money. If I take it out, now I'm at a loss. But if I keep it in there and expect to have some gains, then maybe I will. Some of them, you're going to just have a loss. You just have to write it off as a loss. When is that going to happen? Today, tomorrow? You've got to have a system in place to tell you this. And that's where my investing program comes in. And if system is very important for a business, very important for investing, very important for relationships, very important for family. If you don't have a system, then you don't have anything in place. I mean, I've had to learn the hard way, and probably you've had to learn the hard way as well. So you've got to have a system for until when are you going to support your kids? Because if you're supporting them through their 30s and 40s, it's because they have an injury, they can't work or something, not because they're lazy, not because they're playing games. You've got to have a system in place for everything. Now, I know that Charles here is the only one who's asked me about my investing, and I don't want to give it all away, but Charles asked me very important questions when I was investing. He said, "Oh, so this is why you do this and that." If you're interested in learning about investing, then you've got to hit me up privately. Otherwise, you're not going to get it in this channel. You're not going to get it in 5 minutes. It takes time to learn it. But it's the same thing with any of the businesses you're trying to set up. Gina, Reggie, Charles, Ty, and whoever else is listening here, whatever business you're trying to set up, you've got to have a system in place. You don't have a system in place, then you've got no business, because you've also got to have a system in place to show that you're able to sell it off as well. So that's it for the Mastermind Book Club. Everyone had a chance to speak. And until next week, when we're going to have a different book, and one of our members is going to recommend a book for next week. If not, I'll put in one in our Facebook group and our private chat group in WhatsApp. And until next week, take care, everyone.